Hello my dear YouTuber friends, and I hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video, which is revisiting the Xbox 360 controller on the PC playing Flight Simulator 2020. After the last update, people were having issues with their Xbox 360 controller on the PC, and this seems to be a much requested video for me to revisit. Some things changed, some things for the better, some things for the worse, but I'll go over them in this video. Well, let's not hesitate, let's get on with the video. Okay, so we're set up at our usual runway 27 at London City Airport, our usual test bed, in the Cessna 172 with my very snazzy Huddison skin there. Ace is Down 1 created this for me. Go and look at his latest video, which I'll link in the top right. It's a very overcast and murky looking London currently. I've got it on live weather, but quite atmospheric. We'll keep it that way. Let's get on with these settings, shall we? One thing you may have all noticed, let's press escape, go to options, and then control options. Make sure you've got your controller, your Xbox 360 controller highlighted here, so this should be white and highlighted. If we go to sensitivity, you probably all noticed this, but our rudder sensitivities and settings now all save. So this is, I'll come back to sensitivities later on in this video, but my right trigger, as you can see there, and my left trigger, which I have set to rudder, if you restart Flight Simulator, shut down your PC, leave it overnight, come back the next morning, you will find that your sensitivities are now saved on the rudders, which is fantastic. Didn't do that before the last update, which is great. So there's one bit of good news. Let me just change this controller profile. I've got a different profile here because I want to show you something, and this is probably something I know I've had a couple of comments on this, what people are experiencing. If we go into our cockpit, you will notice it starts drifting. We can still move left, right, up, down with our cockpit buttons. With our right analog stick on our Xbox 360 controller, but it's drifting. Now, what's causing this? Let's go back to options, control options, and we'll go into our camera and cockpit camera to see what's going on. It's these two settings which I don't remember setting up. Perhaps I did. I don't remember setting these up. The yaw axis and the pitch axis in the cockpit camera on the right analog stick. If you're getting those problems, those drifting problems, left click on these two, one at a time. So we'll left click on the yaw there. Just going to left click in this box. I'm going to go to clear current input and validate. I'm going to do the same with the pitch axis. Left click in the box, clear current input and validate. And we'll apply and save that and go back to the simulator. Trouble is now, moving our right analog stick does nothing. Pressing the right analog stick still resets your cockpit view, but we've just deleted any assignments for looking around the cockpit on that right analog stick. Let me go through this with you. I'm going to set them back up. Press escape. Go to control options. So I've still got the Xbox 360 controller selected there. Go to camera, cockpit camera. And we want to change the filter here to all, showing us all the possible things we can set up. These are just our assigned, what we simply have assigned at the moment. I want to go to filter all, left click on the arrow, to show all the possible assignments. So we'll keep scrolling down in this cockpit camera menu. Keep scrolling down, go past the save custom cameras, go past the load custom cameras. Keep scrolling down, you should start seeing quick views, go past them, and then you'll get to things like cockpit lookup, Simply cockpit look left, cockpit look right. These are the ones we want to set. So cockpit look up, we'll click in the box here. Click and start scanning. So cockpit look up, start scanning. I'm going to move my right analog stick up. And click validate. And cockpit look right. Let's go to that one next. I'm going to click in the box here, cockpit look right, left click and start scanning. Going to move my right analog stick right. And you should see that there it's denoted by a little mark on the right here, so that's right. Don't worry about these other bindings. It's like your drone, external view, slew, toolbar. These are not going to take effect when you're in the default cockpit view, so don't worry about the other default bindings. Just press validate there. And what we'll do, we'll apply and save that to save our progress so far. Cockpit look left. Left click in the box, left click and start scanning, move your right analog stick left. As you can see, it's denoted by a little thing on the left there. Don't worry about the other bindings, validate. We'll just scroll down a little bit, cockpit look down, there it is, cockpit look down, not the lockables, just a cockpit look down. Left click in the box there, left click and start scanning. And move your right analog stick down. And again, don't worry about the other bindings. Press validate and apply and save that. And we'll go back to the simulator. And now, if I move my right analog stick, I can look all around my cockpit. That's simply, keep it that way. That's all you need to set up for looking around your cockpit. You don't need to worry about the other settings. That's fine. Pressing in the right analog stick will just reset my view. Okay, so that's that part done. Let's now look at all my other key bindings that I've got set up in the simulator. Okay, so what I'm simply going to do here is just walk you through my settings rather than set them all up again. So I'm in options, I'll go to control options. I'm going to ensure I've got my profile that I'm currently using. Obviously I've named it so, controller profile in use, selected. So this is a profile I use when flying. Let's first go to camera and cockpit camera. Now I've just showed you how to set up cockpit look left right with your right analog stick there, so I don't need to go back over them again. I kept the cockpit view right and left by using the D-pad left and right. I've kept them on there. I may delete them. They're handy if you just want to look left and right quickly, just use your D-pad to look left and right. It's these two, previous pilot position and next pilot position. Let's go back to the simulator. What that does, if I use my key bindings to go to my previous pilot position, it means I can cycle between my G1000s quite easily. Very useful when I'm setting up the G1000s in flight, like that. And then I can go to my next pilot position to look over the nose of my aircraft, or previous pilot position to go back to my default pilot view. And the way I've set these up, let's just get back into cockpit camera there. I've set them up where I'm pressing down the Y button, and for my previous pilot position, D-pad down. Now, I think previous to this, I had them on my left bumper button and right bumper button. So holding down my left bumper button and pressing D-pad down would take me to my previous pilot position. Problem with that is I've got my trimming services where I'm trimming the aircraft assigned to my bumper buttons. So if I mess around with my bumper buttons in flight, my trim goes out of skew and my aircraft starts reacting, so starts misbehaving, shall we say. So you're best having these previous and next pilot positions on a button that you're not currently using. I'm not currently using Y, so I'll hold down Y, and like I just showed you, D-pad down to look at my previous pilot position, my instruments. And then in instrument views, so open that menu there, simply moving my D-pad left and right will cycle me between my various instruments. So basically all I'm interested in the Cessna is my left and right G1000. It will cycle me between those two views or other views if I wish. So that's what I've got my cockpit camera and instrument view set up on. Let's go on. So flight control services, obviously the primary flight controls, you may all have similarly, I'm not sure by default if your rudder is set to your left and right triggers. We can see that. Let's go back to our default profile. It is. So left and right triggers is your default rudders. And I've just kept them in my profile. Let's go back to my profile in use. I'll just apply and save that even though I've not changed anything. Yeah, rudders left and right, and as I showed you before, my sensitivities, I found on my rudders, so left and right trigger, let's go over these sensitivities first. I found sensitivity of -31 with no dead zone for me personally, or extremity dead zone or reactivity, just -31 in the left, minus and plus sensitivities on left and right triggers is enough for me for my rudders. Now, you could try this. If it doesn't suit you, change it. Don't just take my sensitivities and think they're the best thing for you. You've got to see what suits you. This suits me with my Xbox 360 controller. And over time, I may change these. I may find that no longer suits me, so I start changing them. Currently, these suit me. So -31 in the plus and minus sensitivities on the left and right trigger. Move your left and right trigger to see which one of these sensitivity boxes is your left and right trigger. It's quite obvious actually. Right trigger, RT, go up, left T for left trigger. So there you go. Aileron axis, left and right on my left analog stick, and elevator axis up and down on my left analog stick. That's set by default, but I'll show you my sensitivities on them. Go to sensitivity and move your left analog stick up and down to see your pitch axis. I can quite see it, clearly see it's in this box here. I've got them set and it suits me, and it suits me very well actually on the Xbox 360 controller. I wish the Series S controller was similar. It must be too sensitive, or simply it's because it's a different platform. But anyway, the sensitivity of -70 in both plus and minus sensitivities here suit me on my pitch axis. Give it a try and see if it suits you. My left and right aileron axis there. So my left analog stick, moving it left and right, again -70 in both the minus and plus sensitivities suit me, and a reactivity of 90%. I keep playing around with this, but for now, this seems to suit me, and it seems to actually give me quite a natural feeling in flight in the Cessna aircraft. Remember, this is set up for the Cessna 172. It may be different for other aircraft. So I'll just keep that there for you. You can pause the video, take a note of those sensitivities. Give them a try. If it doesn't suit, play around with them. Add your own dead zone, extremity dead zone, reactivity, and sensitivities. Okay, and that's all I've set up in sensitivities, in fact, and that's all I'll go over in the primary flight control services. Control trimming services, like I said, I've got my elevator trim nose up and down to my left and right bumper buttons. So if I'm trimming, I want to go to straight and level flight, I use my left bumper to trim nose up, or my right bumper to trim nose down. Rudder trims I don't bother with. I think these are set by default, but I don't generally bother with anyway. So that's that. Secondary control services, quite explanatory there. Increase flaps. I move my D-pad down to engage, put some flaps in basically. And to decrease them, take the flaps back up, I use my up on my D-pad, as you can see there. So let's go to brakes. Toggle parking brake. I think this was set differently. I've got my A button, which I'll show you in a moment. I've got my A button as increased throttle. So when I'm increasing throttle, I can hold down A and move my D-pad left to toggle my parking brakes, to turn my parking brakes off. That suits me. Play around with it, see what suits you. Brakes I've simply just got set to my X button. And like I mentioned, power management, throttle, increase throttle A, decrease throttle B. Nothing much more to say about that. And landing gear. Not quite sure. You toggle landing gear. Yeah, I just click my left analog stick in to toggle my landing gear. Don't need to worry about that on the Cessna. Okay, so those are all my button assignments currently I've got set up, and that works well for the Cessna aircraft. I'll go back and resume. What I'll do now is go for a quick test flight to show you these settings in practice. Okay, so like I said, I'm set up at runway 27 at London City Airport, my usual test bed. Gonna hold down A to increase my throttle. Gonna use my left D-pad just to toggle my parking brakes. I'm using my rudder on the ground. It seems to work well with those sensitivity settings I set up. Just move to my left view quickly. Yep, I've not got any flaps because I don't need flaps. That's good. I'll take off now. I'm over 16 knots. I'm on live weather, so keep that in mind. I might be blown about a bit. I'm going to trim those up just so I can relieve pressure on my left analog stick. I trim those down using my left and right bumper buttons. That just seems to work well. It works beautifully, in fact. And it's so easy to trim with the bumper buttons. I may be tempted to change my Xbox Series S controller settings to a similar profile that I've got set up here, because it just works well. Rather than using the right bumper button to hold it down and use my right analog stick for trim, I may actually just change it to my bumper buttons. Yeah, I'm being blown around a bit here because it just works well. Sort of button clicks just works best at the moment, I find, with trim. Personally, I find it works best. So what I'll do, I'll fly around the buildings, the main downtown London City landmarks, as you can see ahead of us. Just use my mouse ahead of us there. Move the mouse out of the way. If I'm looking around my cockpit, no issues. Using my right analog stick there, absolutely no issues. Click it in. Just to reset the view. Let's go down to my instruments. Don't need to. Yeah, but I can cycle between them, come back up to my, let's trim those down there, come back up to my default view with no issues. I'm going to stick to roughly, oh, I'm being blown around, if I can, 1,000 feet altitude. Roughly, doesn't need to be exact, so where am I at the moment? 900, it's getting there. And I'll just do a quick fly around while I'm here. Let's actually move bank right, employ a bit of rudder in there too. It works well with those settings. Bank left, oops, did that a bit too quickly. Use a bit of rudder settings in there, no issues at all. Come back to straight and level flight if I can. I've gone over my 1,000 altitude now, that's okay. Just going to trim out, just to, there we go. Just to control my altitude there. I keep clicking my bumper buttons, so I keep knocking my trim out because I'm so used to using my left bumper and D-pad down on my Series S to look at my instruments. I've got to remember it's Y on this. Just over 1,000 feet altitude, it will do. I'm not trying to be exact in this video, I'm just showing you the settings that I currently have set up, and I've got to say it works well. Even with this latest update that we're currently on, like I said, I keep pressing my bumper buttons just by it's funny, just by habit. Sim update 6 is literally just around the corner, possibly, if everything goes to plan. Right, let's do a 180 here and come back towards London City Airport. I'll put a bit of rudder in there while I'm turning. Absolutely no issue at all. It just seems to work well. So I'm doing quite a rapid turn there. with a bit of rudder employed as well. Yeah, no issues at all there. So coming back to face towards London City Airport, as you can see in the distance there. Come back. If only my Series S controller works as well as this, I'll be happy with just the default controller. I tend to use the Halt S1 on the Series S, of course. It's a shame it doesn't work quite as well. There's quite a lot of wind here, so just bear with me. Let me just trim back up. And I'm going to decrease the throttle as well, because I can see London City ahead of me, just to get into flaps 1 speed. So I'll trim up so I don't lose altitude there. Definitely don't want to lose any more altitude. I've gone under the altitude I want to be. So I'll just bring that back up a bit. And that will help my speed to fall. Getting towards flaps 1 speed, so that's fine. Like I said, I'm being blown. It's quite blustery, it seems, in London at the moment. I'm not sure how realistic it is. I guess it's cloudy now where I am, but not quite as cloudy as this. Flaps 1, that will do. I'm in flaps 1 speed. Or stage 1 flaps. And I'll just trim out there so I don't start descending, because I can see the pappy lights. I'm actually low on the approach, not surprisingly, so I'll try and bring those pappy lights back to sort of white and red. So just keep that altitude and that profile. And it's so easy. As you'll see when we're coming to land, those sensitivity settings with the Xbox 360 controller. It's a shame it doesn't work with the Series S and X, because it just works so well on the PC version of Flight Simulator. Very well indeed. I'm actually contemplating buying a laptop. I may have to travel in the future for work, so contemplating buying a gaming laptop of some sort so I can keep up the videos. And I'll be taking with me my Xbox 360 controller, as long as no future updates mess it up or bugger it up, because that will be a pain. Let's just come back on that. As you can see, all the time in the world, it just works well. Just small inputs with my left and right analog stick. Come on, let's line up properly this time, Hodgson. Just waiting for those pappy lights. Let's go to flaps 2. Second stage of flaps. Put myself back into a good descent profile there. Still low on the pappy lights. I'll get some white showing at least. And then just bring I can quite clearly see the runway ahead of me, but I'll get some white showing on those pappy lights to bring us back to a sort of good approach. There we go, and then just start descending down to the runway. Now that's better. 2 white, 2 red. So looks like a good approach. Start decreasing my throttle more now. And I'm just actually using my left analog stick, and it just works so well. You do this on the Series S with the Series S controller, and it doesn't work so well. You can end up going skoo-whiffy doing this. With the Xbox 360 controller, and I'm not sure what the difference is. Maybe the Series S and X controller is too sensitive. Maybe they'll fix that in the next patch, because it is very difficult to fly. I find you have to be really well lined up with a runway to do this. But I'm just using small pitch movements there with the actual controller as well. I'm going to null my throttle now because I'm over the runway. Yeah, look at that. I'm just using small pitch movements to float myself. Let's try and float for as long as we can. Look at that. No issues at all with the controller there. And bring myself down, press my X button to decrease throttle there. And yes, I should park up, but as usual I'm going to stick myself right in the middle of the runway to disturb oncoming traffic. That's my video, my revisit on the Xbox 360 controller on PC. In my opinion, it works better than ever now, especially now we can save our sensitivities on the rudders. But do let me know your thoughts. Give the video a like if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe for many more videos on their way certainly. And I'll see you soon.